In the previous episode, we saw how Amelia was dragged into a dream realm after taking just one bite of food made by Li Ping. She was desperately looking for a way to get out. However, when Li Ping saw Amelia's reaction, he asked her if she was not used to the food. Elizabeth told him that she was savoring the protein he had prepared for her. Up next, concerned, Li Ping hoped that Amelia liked it, thinking to himself, it turns out that dragons eat food very slowly and swallow it carefully. Meanwhile, Amelia was engaged in a furious battle in the dream realm with Toda. Although she was greatly injured in the fight, she also gave her opponent, Toda, a tough competition. He acknowledged Amelia's strength, thinking, as expected of the monster lord. Amelia turned back into her human form and asked Toda if he still wanted to continue fighting. Gravely wounded, Toda told Amelia that there was no need for that. He accepted defeat with all his heart, but declared that this failure would be swallowed by him and turned into nutrients for his next evolution. After saying his last words, Toda fell to the ground and turned to dust along with all his monsters. Although Amelia had defeated him, she agreed with his sentiment, thinking, if I can't even handle one failure, then I am even less qualified to serve the master. Even if I fail, I am still the master of monsters. Her inner body started glowing with a golden light, and as she roared, all the energy began gathering in her body. Outside of the dream realm, Li Ping heard Amelia shouting loudly and asked Elizabeth to give her a glass of water to calm down. However, Elizabeth told him there was no need, as Amelia still needed some time to adapt to his meal. She explained that once Amelia gets used to it, it will be of great benefit to her. Elizabeth thought, when I was still a demon king, I almost couldn't withstand the impact of the dumplings hidden with chili. Although Amelia now has the bonus of the contract with me, it is still quite difficult to taste the gift of such deep cooking. Li Ping didn't understand what she meant, but as long as it was beneficial, he didn't care. He thought, I thought dragons can breathe fire, so they shouldn't be afraid of spicy food. Meanwhile, after eating Li Ping's spicy food, Amelia successfully absorbed it, advanced past the Demon Lord level, and reached the Demon King peak. Seeing Amelia's success, Elizabeth smiled and told her, only then will you be worthy of being my pet. If you had failed, you would have had to cheer for it again. Upon hearing this, Amelia's eyes filled with tears, and she thanked her master for her good intentions. She hugged Elizabeth tightly and started crying. Elizabeth gently patted her head and told her not to cry. Watching this from the side, Li Ping smiled and remarked that he felt refreshed. He thought, Elizabeth was right. Protein helps with recovery. Amelia looked at Li Ping and thought, although I'm still not convinced, no wonder my master likes this hero. But one thing I realized today is that his strength is truly unfathomable. Amelia understood what Elizabeth meant. The so-called tasting failure means that only by experiencing failure can one reach a higher realm. This is both an encouragement and a threat. But I don't want to waver again. I will definitely help my master defeat Li Ping, the legendary hero. She then told Li Ping, if you have anything else delicious, you should bring it to Amelia. Li Ping smiled, remembering a similar scene from their first night together. Elizabeth smirked and told Li Ping that she wasn't that greedy. Meanwhile, outside, Holy Sword Alpha transformed into his human form and went somewhere. The next morning, while Li Ping was sleeping with Elizabeth, Amelia suddenly snuck into his bed and pushed him away, telling him that it was her turn to sleep with her master. She asked Li Ping to leave the job of sleeping with the Emperor to Amelia. She thought, if the master hadn't locked me up in the contract space last night, I wouldn't have given up my seat to him. Li Ping awkwardly agreed, noting that since it was already morning, it was time for him to get up. He decided to let them rest for a while as he went to make breakfast for everyone. Elizabeth, who was awake and saw this, smiled and thought, Li Ping, you are still reluctant to take the next step with me. I wonder if I have to wait until the end of the month. I refuse to believe it. I plan to take him down before the end of the month. Later, Li Ping had prepared breakfast for everyone and was about to call Elizabeth, but saw she was already awake. He was more surprised to see that Amelia was carrying Elizabeth on her shoulders. Outside, Wang Chai was playing and looking for Holy Sword Alpha, but was surprised to find that Alpha was nowhere to be found. After everyone completed their meal, Li Ping was washing the dishes. Elizabeth and Amelia were relaxing on the sofa in the hall, watching TV. Elizabeth told Amelia the whole story of how she has been living here forever. Amelia was surprised to hear this, but still didn't quite understand what she meant by saying she was still making progress. In Amelia's heart, her master had long been the most powerful being. Elizabeth thought for a moment, wondering, how should I put it? She explained, I reached the top, but when I look up, I realize that I'm not even close to the top. That's pretty much what it feels like. There is always a mountain higher than the other. Confused, Amelia asked her master, "How is that possible? You have mastered all magic." Elizabeth told her, "It is because we have climbed over the mountains that we realize how insignificant they are. There are still countless things in this world that we cannot understand. Just like this TV series, I have watched it dozens of times and benefited a lot from it, but I still can't fully understand it." Still confused, Amelia didn't understand what her master meant. She watched the TV series Elizabeth was talking about and somewhat related herself to the story. The Four Dragon Kings? Making Trouble in Heaven? Journey to the West? The dragon wants to turn into a horse? The 81 Trials? But she quickly realized that it's much more than that. To her shock, she didn't know what the hell was going on. Amelia couldn't understand it at all. What if I was just food for the Garuda in this world? The amount of information was so overwhelming that Amelia's brain couldn't handle it, and she became unconscious. Smiling, Elizabeth said reassuringly that Amelia would eventually get used to it. Meanwhile, Li Ping finished washing the dishes and came to see Elizabeth. To his surprise, he saw that Amelia had already fallen asleep again so quickly. He smiled and asked Elizabeth, "Want to go outside and get some sunshine?" Elizabeth jumped with excitement. Both of them went outside. Li Ping threw a frisbee to Wang Chai and said, "Go catch it. This is a new frisbee I especially made for you." Excited to see his master finally playing with him, Wang Chai leaped into the air to catch the frisbee with his mouth. However, to his surprise, the frisbee changed direction on its own, hit Wang Chai on the head, and threw him to the ground. Furious, Wang Chai tried to grab it with his robotic hand, but he still couldn't catch it. He then used a net, but he failed again. Unable to hold back any longer, he used a quantum black hole, thinking, "This really is a worthy frisbee made by my owner. This must be a performance test. I won't let you get away. I will bring you back to my master and get his praise." However, to his shock, the frisbee used a space jump and easily dodged Wang Chai's attack. Shocked, Wang Chai began analyzing the frisbee. It was made with the same high-tech construction material as Wang Chai himself and possessed its own intelligent life. Wang Chai grew excited, thinking they must have come from another dimension while his master was making new inventions. He hadn't seen such a good opponent in a long time, so without wasting any time, he unleashed all his weapons and attacked the frisbee, creating a huge explosion. The explosion was so far away that Li Ping thought Wang Kai was just having fun. He turned to Elizabeth and asked, "After Wang Kai picks it up, is it your turn to throw the frisbee next?" However, Elizabeth rejected his offer, asking, "Besides these things, isn't there anything else you want to do with me? Something deeper?" Li Ping was too embarrassed to give her an answer. Elizabeth smiled and said, "Ever since you said you would give me a surprise at the end of the month, you seem to be deliberately keeping your distance from me. Aren't we already lovers? Why do we have to wait until then?" Li Ping apologized, telling her, "I'm a bit old-fashioned. My original plan was to propose to you during the hot spring trip. I'm a person who believes in pure love, so I thought we would wait until then for all the good things." Elizabeth replied shyly, "I can't wait anymore. I want to have an in-depth exchange with you right now. Unless you don't want to." Scared, Li Ping stammered, "This isn't the right time. We're still in the wild." He continued, "As a normal man, if someone asks me if I want to, of course I do, but I never thought about it being so wild for the first time." Elizabeth told him there wasn't a problem. "There's no one else here." Li Ping blushed, thinking, "That's right. For Elizabeth, I have to be bolder. Otherwise, being too conservative would be boring." He then told Elizabeth that he would take his clothes off. However, to his surprise, Elizabeth was talking about Li Ping's past. He was shocked to hear this. He had completely misunderstood. He thought she was talking about something else, but she was actually curious to know about his history. Elizabeth told him, "I really want to know everything about you, although I know it has always been taboo to spy on the past of those in a higher position." Li Ping smiled awkwardly and agreed with Elizabeth, saying, "You are right. When people are in love, they should know each other inside and out. We have lived together for so long, but we have never talked about our past experiences." He asked, "Elizabeth, do you really want to know about my past? I don't want to talk about my boring life as a corporate drone." Eventually, Li Ping told her everything. "In my previous world, I was just an ordinary person. I grew up in the countryside with my grandparents, so I did all kinds of farm work. Although it was hard, it was still the happiest time for me. When I grew up, I went to school and enrolled in South China Agricultural University. During holidays, I would go back to the village to help. This cycle continued until I graduated from college and went to work in a big city. Gradually, I returned to the countryside less and less. Eventually, my grandparents passed away one after another, leaving me alone. Life became a busy and hectic cycle of going to work and coming home every day. Sometimes I didn't even know why I was doing it. He continued, I don't like playing games or watching anime. My only fun was probably watching my favorite short videos on my way to work. Then, one day, as I was going home, I was watching a video, and the next moment, I found myself inexplicably in this world. After I arrived, a system wanted me to become a legendary hero, but I had no interest in it at all. I just wanted to live a simple life here, and that's all there is to my past. Elizabeth was surprised. Is that all? Li Ping smiled and told her, it's very simple. Elizabeth was still confused, and couldn't believe it was so simple. She thought, simple? No, it's pure. It is precisely because of Li Ping's pure attitude towards life that he can step into a realm that others cannot reach. As the saying goes, the great way is simple. And that so-called system, why did it want Li Ping and me to be at odds with each other? But Li Ping's innocence ultimately made its conspiracy fail and also created a fate between us. This must all be within Li Ping's control. While Elizabeth was still processing everything, Li Ping told her that he would also like to know about her past experiences. A little surprised, Elizabeth asked, what do you want to know? Li Ping excitedly told her, I want to know everything about your past. What was your childhood like? And why did you become a demon queen and try to rule the world? Elizabeth agreed. I will tell you everything, she said. But I should warn you in advance that my past is very boring. If you don't want to hear it, you can interrupt me at any time. Everything begins with the history of the Brave Continent, an era before magic was invented. Long ago, she began, the Brave Continent was a world of peace and prosperity, where all races lived in harmony. However, with the emergence of extreme racists, they continued to incite opposition and sow discord. Gradually, the various races began to split and separate, each ruling its own territory and fighting for resources. Under this distorted ideology, the mixed-race descendants who once symbolized racial integration were regarded as aliens, expelled, and became homeless exiles. In order to survive, they could only settle in dangerous areas that no other races were willing to set foot in. After a long time, they gradually formed a new race, the demon race, and this wild land forgotten by the world was called the Demon Realm. Although they were nominally part of the same faction, the demons have never been truly united. In an environment of extreme resource scarcity, plunder, killing, and crime had long become the daily rules of survival. From the time I was old enough to understand, the Demon Realm has been like this. One day, just like any other, demons were fighting each other for resources, and I was watching them, carrying a piece of bread. Just then, a demon saw me in the middle of the road and confiscated my bread for blocking his way. I begged him to give it back to me. However, the demon got furious and tried to harm me. But before he could kick me, I awakened my bloodline magic and broke his leg. I asked him one last time to give my bread back. Terrified, the demon gave me the bread and ran away. That day was a turning point. Perhaps because I inherited the best genes from all bloodlines, I completed my first magic awakening when I was 5 years old. In the Demon Realm, a place with no law but strength, I was in charge of a neighborhood by the time I was 9. At that time, they called me Witch Elizabeth. When I turned 13, I personally formed the Scarlet Moon Bounty Army, which soon became the most feared existence in the Demon Realm. All the major forces competed to hire us, but they didn't know my real purpose. Every time we carried out a mission, I would sneak into their forbidden ancient sites to collect lost ancient magic books. When the last piece of the magic puzzle fell into place, on my 16th birthday, I experienced the second awakening that shocked the entire Brave Continent. Afterwards, I quickly used my strength to command the entire Demon Realm, became the Queen of the Demons, and officially started my plan to rule the world, declaring war on all forces. In the face of my absolute strength, I successfully subjugated the elves, compelling their surrender. Subsequently, I conquered the territory of the orcs, forcing their capitulation. Following the surrender of the dwarves, only the human territory remained. One day, as Elizabeth headed to the human royal castle to demand its surrender, Prince Malfoy saw her for the first time and fell instantly in love. Before the prince could say a word, however, Elizabeth destroyed the entire castle. She had received intelligence that the royal family had secretly sacrificed countless lives to prolong their own. Her purpose that day was to eradicate such corrupt scum.